Oh, hello. Didn't see you there. But thank you for coming around for episode 4 of Encyclopedia America. And this is a continuation of capitalism and the big three economic thinkers of our day. Now, this one, we are going to focus on Karl Marx. But before we get into Karl Marx, his life, his works, his influence on our society, I want to pose a question. Now, think about the first job you ever had. Not the job you had last, but literally you were like 13, 14, 16, 20, whatever the case may be. You were assumingly paid minimum wage. Now, do you honestly think that what you were paid on an hourly basis was the same as what you actually contributed? Now, I want you to think about that for a second as I, am going through this, okay? Now, you have to figure, just as a business as a whole, you have the hourly wage that you're being paid, in this case, probably a minimum wage, and then you take that minus the overhead, which is anything from the lights, the rent, whatever you have to buy to make your products. And if you take the hourly wage minus the overhead, you get a surplus. Now, in my case, with my first job when I was 13, the owner of the company, my boss, took that surplus and did with it whatever he wanted. It was his. Now, with Karl Marx, when he wrote Das Kapital in 1867, he was very much so influenced by Adam Smith's Wealth of Nations. And he looked around and he didn't see the benefits of capitalism that Smith had laid out. All he saw was masses of people in poverty. And the old ways were bad, feudalism, mercantilism, but capitalism seemed to be just as bad. It didn't get rid of classes. It basically made them more antagonistic. And it just made new classes where there was new forms of oppression, there were new struggles, and they were pretty similar to the old ones. And that's kind of how capitalism played out. Now, with capitalism and with Das Kapital, it is solely a critique. It is not telling anybody how they should set up a new economy or what he thinks is the best. That came later. That came through the Communist Manifesto that he wrote in 1948 with Joseph Goebbels. And basically, it's the same kind of idea as capitalism. You don't have something where just because I want to pay more for it, I get it. Where when somebody can't pay for it, maybe they need it more, they don't get it. The Communist Manifesto deprives no man of the ability to appropriate the fruits of his labor. It only deprives people the ability to exploit others by means of this appropriation. Now, this Communist Manifesto was the basis for the Russian Revolution in 1917. The working class people, they rose up and they overthrew the Tsar, which is basically a form of an autocratic society, meaning he's in charge and we listen, we get in line. He says jump, we say how high, sir. But when they overthrew the Tsar, they took all private ownership away from everything. Nobody owned stuff. That land is not yours, that land is ours. But here's the rub. The people that were in charge of the Russian Revolution, they didn't turn the power back over to the people, to the working class. They kept it. And that is what we look at as communism or socialism today, when really it was just another form of state capitalism. So what was the Communist Manifesto for? What were they trying to do? And how does it equate to America today? Very simple answer. The way that we can do it so that this doesn't happen is through democratic socialism. And that's just literally just cooperative ownership of things. And it really breaks down to 4 different types of cooperative ownership. One is public, meaning that the government should be taking care of the basic needs of people: water, electricity, education, infrastructure, just everything you use every day. Now, there's also community cooperative ownership, meaning that a community, a municipality, a city could own like a park or a stadium and they can operate it as well. The third is nonprofits. something such as like a land conservation, a bird sanctuary, where again, they own it, it's operated by them, but it's for the good of everybody. It's for the good of our planet and society as well. The other one is worker co-ops, meaning that the owner or the workers, they own the business together. So they decide how it runs, what their job is, what their wages are, and then most importantly, how to divide up the profits. Meaning that I live in this community, I start a business with 4 other like-minded individuals. There's no incentive to bring costs lower to increase our profits because that's going to affect the community. If I'm shipping jobs off to China or any sort of other third world country, well, a third world country that eventually turned into a first world country, I'm not going to take your job. I'm not going to pollute the water. I'm not going to ruin the land. I'm not going to outsource the cheapest goods possible or put poison in coffee to make it decaf because my neighbor Steve is going to be drinking that, and I see him on a daily basis, and he's going to hold me accountable, as opposed to capitalism, a different outside source needing to keep these corporations accountable. Because at the end of the day, corporations only care about maximizing profits, decreasing costs, and ignoring externalities. The externalities being poisoning Steve, or ruining the water, or destroying a town because I can have cheaper labor even though the entirety of the town was set up for production of, let's say, steel. We can get cheaper steel from anywhere else, so we're going to do that. That's all democratic socialism is. Socialism as a definition is not Russia. Communism as a definition is not Russia. The root word of communism is community, meaning we all own it together. We all get the responsibilities. We all make the decisions. We all get to share in the profits. And I'm going to end this with the last line of the Communist Manifesto. Workers of all lands, unite, because we can do better than this. We deserve better than a minimum wage that doesn't supply us with the ability to go to the hospital and pay for anything without going bankrupt and having to start a GoFundMe account, which is 94% of them in this country, to pay our medical bills. This has been another episode of EncycloPETEia America. Stay tuned for the 5th episode where we'll kind of wrap up the great economic thinkers of our day and talk about John Maynard Keynes. See you soon.